Hello there, and good evening to you. I want to start by apologizing for starting later than promised. I said I'll be on at 9:30, but I eventually was out and was not able to come home on time. But as I promised, I thought I'm going to have to keep my promise today. So my name is Pauline Lehman. I'm the founder of Star Richards Community Initiative. It's a charity based in Manchester and supporting parents across Greater Manchester. Our mission is to raise aspirations and break the cycle of Black people underachievement in education, as well as promote the well-being of BME children and their families. So I have a passion for supporting parents to raise high achieving children, and children will go on to succeed in school and in life, because I believe that every child with the right support, the right mindset, can do well in school and can go on to maximize their potential in any area of their lives. And that is why I keep reminding us of this, because I believe there is greatness in our children. There's greatness in your child. Thank you so much for those who have joined in. I know it's a bit late, so thank you for making time to join me this evening. So I'm going to be talking about a topic which is a bit of a topic that we don't quite talk about within the community, but that I think is really, really important. We're going to be talking about child sexual abuse. It's holiday time. We're going to talk about, share some tips for protecting our children from child abuse during the summer holidays. So for those of us in England, summer holidays for some are, have started or are going to be starting today or tomorrow. And for some, it's going to be next week. So our children will have plenty of time in their hands. The parents might need to get or ask for help from friends to keep their kids while they go to work, or some parents might want to send their children away on holidays. And, so much can happen when our kids are away from us. And even when they are in our house and, in your own house, and you're not aware of what could be going on. And child abuse has such a terrible impact on children. We're talking about raising confident, happy, and children who grow up or go ahead to succeed in life. So if we're going to raise up those children who are confident, who are happy, it's important that we protect them from child abuse. So because when a child is sexually abused, it has such a damaging impact on the child. The kids tend to have low self-esteem. Children who have been sexually abused tend to find it difficult to maintain good relationships. They can tend to be more promiscuous, or they could delve into addictions like alcohol and drugs or depression. The impact, the effect of sexual abuse on children is far-reaching, and that is why I believe that as a community, we don't talk about this a lot, but I think we need to be aware of this kind of thing. Now, what does statistics show? The NSPCC shows that statistics from the NSPCC shows that 1 in 20 children would have been abused, during their childhood. And that in 90% of the cases, the perpetrator is somebody that is known to the child. So it's somebody that a child would have known and would have trusted, and would have kind of, not needed to be cautious with. And that is why, this kind of thing happens. So let's talk about child abuse, sexual abuse, because when we talk about sexual abuse, I believe that, even actually before I went to do some research, in my mind, it's about actually an adult or somebody having, intimate or sexual activity with a child, but it ranges. It's very, very broad. And as I share this, it's important that, as adults dealing with kids, that we are dealing with them cautiously, so that, if they talk about things out there in school, we don't get in trouble with social services. So it ranges from touching activities such as touching a child's private part, or getting a child to touch, someone else's genitals, or it could be actually, penetrative sexual relationships. Also, we've got non-touching activities such as allowing children watching pornography, even if an adult does not allow them to watch it. Your child really within your care should not be watching it. So it's important that we set all the controls, parental controls in place on our mobile phones, on our laptops, and on our, all the screens that we have at home. It's also allowing kids to watch things, illicit images that they shouldn't be watching. So allowing your child to watch movies that are beyond their age, is not right. I've had, to deal with parents who have been referred to social services for neglect because they've allowed kids to watch movies that are not right for their age. The kids went to school and started saying certain things that the teacher knew the movies that they had watched to be able to say these things. And that is how these families got referred to social services. So it's really important that we are careful with what our children watch. It's not, we really can't sit down with children and watch adult movies with them. So we need to be familiar. There was a couple of weeks ago, I posted the British film ratings. It's important as parents, we let us familiarize ourselves with these ratings so that we can ensure that our children are exposed to the right kind of thing. It's about even taking pictures of, sexual poses of children, okay, or watching, children that are being sexually abused. Thank you for joining. So it's about all that kind of thing, or even allowing your child or children to see an adult naked, that kind of thing. We need to protect that is part of it. Or going into a teenager, into the bathroom, and a teenager is having their shower, again, that is part of it. Thank you so much for joining. Please, I welcome your comments. This is something that is really serious within the community that we don't talk about. We're shy, to talk about these things. And it's really, I believe we need to protect our children. Because growing up, if we are honest, we would know that we were exposed to these things in one way or the other. And it's our duty to ensure that we protect our children from this kind of abuse. So what are the things that can happen? So it's holiday time. And I said before, parents would need to send kids for holidays. Back home in Africa, it's very common when we were young. Our parents would send us for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or even a month to some uncles, or, send us for a weekend. Children have plenty of time in their hands, so it's easy for parents to let them go hang out with their friends, without really knowing where they're going, who they are hanging out with, what they are getting involved in. So these are the sort of things. Because of that, it's important that we are aware of this kind of thing. Now, what is the nature of child abuse within our community? I'm going to be very, very frank here with us. Okay, child abuse within our community. I look at a typical African home where you have lots of uncles, lots of maybe cousins, adults in the house. You have house helps or workers living in the house. Because of that, parents don't have a lot of close contact with the kids, and lots of things could be happening. It could range from a child, a worker, a house help, asking a child to touch his private part. It could be a house help fondling a child, hugging them intimately. It could be as simple as, pretend play, mommy and dad pretend play. Sometimes these pretend plays can go far beyond what the children expected it to go, to the extent that the child had wanted it to go to, especially if you have older kids playing with younger kids. Or sometimes even these younger kids, they are so enlightened these days that they know they have some kind of sexual awareness. Unfortunately, that is the generation in which we live. So we have to put up with this. So these are the kind of things. It could be older children actually, touching private parts of younger children. And actually, when I look at statistics from the NSPCC, 1/3 of cases are, the perpetrators in 1/3 of the cases are older children or children actually abusing other children. So we can't take it for granted. You have cousins, we know back in Africa, we have cousins who, had sexual intercourse with cousins during holiday time. I want to talk about this because I believe we can't hide these things. It's important that as parents we are aware. You have older people in the house. We never know the mind of people. You never know whether the person that you are keeping in your house is the one that is destroying your child. So we need to be aware that these things do happen. Grabbing girls' breast, someone just slipping their hand under your teenage daughter's breast, that kind of thing without you knowing, or hitting their bottoms, hugging them in a sexual way, even getting them to sit down on your lap and that kind of thing that we might take for granted. I think these are the sort of things that we need to be aware of. So what are some tips for keeping our children safe during holidays? Now, if I say to you, don't send your child anywhere, that is not practicable. So we're going to have to send our kids for weekends to our family members. We will go on holidays. We were going to have family members or friends come to our home, maybe for holidays or for sleepover and that kind of thing. These things are unavoidable. But what are some of the steps we can take, or some of the things we can do to protect our children? I think that in our day and age, we need to be talking continuously to our children about, about private parts. Okay, so let them know what the real names of these private parts are. And let them understand that because they're private parts, they are not to be touched by anyone. If someone wants to touch it, it is not acceptable. So the private parts, are the parts that you are covered by swimming suits. So your breast, your bottom, front and back side of your bottom. And I would say the mouth as well. So those are the parts that I believe that we need to be telling children. If anybody touches you in these places, they are not allowed. If they touch you in these places, you need to come and tell mommy, or if it is in school, you need to tell your teacher, you need to tell somebody. So they need to be aware of that. I would recommend just regular conversations around that kind of thing would help pass the message across. We need to secondly let our kids understand that it is okay to say no. It could be to a cousin, to an uncle, to an auntie. It is okay to say no to them when they touch us, or if they touch us in a way that we are not comfortable with. So if it makes them uncomfortable, it is okay to say no. And when you said no, they need to come and speak to mommy and daddy. Now, thirdly, it's important for us as parents to listen to our children. A lot of us are very distracted with our mobile phones, with connecting with people out there, such that the child comes to tell you something and you just brush it down, especially, back in Africa, where, parents and children do not communicate effectively. They don't have that kind of relationship. Joyce says the camera is sideways. Please turn it around. Okay, let me try to do that. Thanks for that, Joyce. Okay. Right. Let's see. Oh my God. Is this better? Let me know if it's better. Okay, cool. I think it's okay now, Joyce, isn't it? Okay, thank you for that. Yes, better now. Okay, cheers. So, thirdly, as I said, it's important to listen to your child. So when they come and complain about maybe an uncle and auntie, or maybe complain about an older person, we don't just brush it down. So let's listen to them and let's hear from them, and let's really deal with it. Even if it is a relative, it's really important. We can't allow a lot of children growing up. If we are honest with ourselves, a lot of us have in one way or the other been subjected to this. Now, as children, we didn't understand the implication. We didn't understand that these things were wrong. Yes, but these things are wrong because they stay within the subconscious mind of a child, and they start to play up in the teenage phase and in the later phases of their lives. You just see a teenager just becoming promiscuous, just wanting to, just act in a sexual way, and you're wondering where it came from. You don't know who has been touching this child, as they were growing up, in their childhood phase. So we need to, as adults, as men, and as fathers, as mothers, or even if you're not a father or a mother, let's ensure that we don't subject our young children to this kind of thing. We all have a moral duty to protect our children. If a child is not yours, you don't need them sitting on your lap. I think in this country, it is not allowed. So if a child goes to school, and says, my uncle carried me on the lap, you might get in trouble. So we need to just understand the rule of the country in which we are. I know, obviously, we want to show care and love to our nieces and nephews and children, but please let us do it in an appropriate way. That unnecessary tickling, overly tickling of children and that kind of thing. Let's show them love in an appropriate way so that the kids eventually do not get affected. As parents, let's pay attention to our children's change of moods. A child that has been subjected, even if they are young as 6, 7, 8 years, if they've been subjected to something that subconsciously they feel is inappropriate, they're going to feel sad inwards. When you talk to people who was abused in one way or the other as children, they felt it was wrong, but they didn't realize it until a lot later on. But that change of mood, that quietness, is a sign, it's a cause for concern. Joyce says, I had to go through years and years of therapy to make me whole again because of abuse I went through. Parents need to be vigilant. I absolutely believe in that. That is absolutely true. I know a lot of horrible things that happen during holidays, that we sometimes went to cousins having sex, doing some terrible things. So it's really important that we are vigilant. So let's watch our children's change of mood. And if your child's mood changes, have a conversation with them. Let's allow that conversation to flow freely so that our kids can, be free to talk to us about anything. Hello, Layo. Thank you so much to all of you for joining. I need your thoughts, please. We are all learning here. I'm not the master of all knowledge. We're all learning here. It's something that growing up, I saw this same thing happening within households, parents being really, really ignorant, and parents watching from Africa. This really applies in your case, because in Africa, we live in massive households where we have cousins, uncles, aunties, house help, drivers, and all sorts. And these are the people that are hurting our children. So let's be vigilant and just ensure that, we're doing things that we have to do to protect our children. And I said before that we can't stop our kids from going to other people's homes. So what can you do if your child is going on holidays? I think it is high time we start to talk to others about this, raising this awareness. So if you're sending your child to your sister's house or to a friend's house for a weekend, let's talk about these things to them. To be honest with you, a lot of adults are ignorant. That is why a lot of children succumb to these things. So let's raise that awareness. Talk about it. What are the things that can happen? If they are playing daddy and mommy, they shouldn't play in the bedroom. If they're playing hide and seek, they should avoid areas that, an adult, areas that are, beyond the observation of an adult. So it's really, really important. Talk to them, educate them. I fully agree with you, Lio. So we need to educate one another, especially if you are handing your child over to another household to spend holidays there, like 2 weeks holidays, 1 week, or even sleep over. Daddy and mommy, you remember those games, Layo? Absolutely. So yes, those daddy and mommy games did sometimes go further than what they were meant to be, really. So yes, let's educate each other. Let's educate ourselves. Let's talk to our children. Let's talk to our teenagers. Sometimes our teenagers can be over trusting of adults, that especially trusted adults, their uncles, their aunties, their cousins, family friends. Sometimes they could trust them so much that, an uncle or a cousin tapping your bottom, a child's bottom, seems okay. It's not okay for anybody to tap a teen girl's bottom. Okay, those private parts are private and they need to understand that it's not for anybody to mess around with. So we need to help raise that awareness. As a community, we need to change some of our practices. Carrying children on someone else's child on your laps, it's not acceptable. So let's avoid doing that. Let's avoid telling somebody's child, that, say a man telling a young girl, you are my wife. Now, if that girl goes to school and talks about it, that would be a serious cause of concern. I know in Africa, we're very flimsy with these things. We use these things, innocently, but sometimes, some adults and malicious adults, or ill-intentioned adults have said these things, and eventually they start to familiarize themselves, start to groom these children, and start to abuse them. So sexual abuse is real. It happens in our community. We don't always talk about it. We shy from it, but we need to talk about it, because I believe that a lot of children's self-esteem have been destroyed. So we can't continue to allow our children's self-esteem to be destroyed, to allow them to have warped ideas about sex. Okay, Joyce says, yes, it's worse in places like Africa. In my case, it was neighbors, not relatives. And I'm sure, Joyce, that those neighbors were like family, because I believe in Africa, neighbors are like family. Your parents would have trusted those neighbors. Yes, I knew it was wrong, but too scared to speak to my parents about it. Why? Because the communication was poor. Absolutely. And that is why I did say that we need to maintain an open communication, an atmosphere of open communication within the home, so that children will not, be afraid to come and speak to us. I was once on the Beautiful Mind show with someone who shared her experience of her uncle actually abusing her. When she went to tell the uncle's wife slapped her, and so she shut up for good. And then that thing lingered with her and greatly affected her life as a teenager. So this is something that is really, really important. Let's not shut down these children when they come to talk to us. So it's really a quick one. Tips for keeping our children safe. I'm going to say that again. Number one, it's important to talk to our kids about private parts. Why are they private? Because they belong to us. And so no one has the right to touch them, to tap them, to fondle with them. So they are private. Secondly, let's teach our children that if someone touches them in a way they're not comfortable, they should say no. Even if it's just giving, a child a hug. If they don't want it, then they should say no, they don't want it, and rather give that adult a handshake. Okay, that's number 2. 3, we need to learn to listen to our children when they come to complain. Let us learn to listen to them. Vera says, as parents, we must have honest, open conversations with our children. NSPCC have a toolkit called Let's Talk Pants. Yes, very true, Vera. I was actually going to share that on this Facebook page. I have it. I will share it for parents who want to actually read it. And it has lots even about strategies you could use, to be able to protect your child. I won't say that you protect your child fully, but you just have to do what is within your power to do. Joyce says private parts are special and no one is allowed to touch them. Absolutely. Good point, Vera. Thank you very much for those contributions. Please, let's get them coming. There is also a toolkit on Barnard's website called the Underwear Rule. I've seen that as well. Thank you so much for that. Vera is a social worker, so she knows very much about that. Absolutely. So number 4, pay attention to your child's change of mood. So if your child changes mood when, after, taking them, dropping them off at someone's house to maybe stay there for the day while you go to work, please find out what happened. Also, it's good to talk to children about, when they went to that auntie's house, what did they play? What sort of games did they play? You want to find out what games did they play, what did they watch, and that kind of thing, just to know, because not all parents really have that integrity. Some parents will let their kids, they don't even control what the kids watch. So you want to know what they have been watching, what did they play, what did they talk about, just in a nice, friendly way, not in a kind of patronizing you as if you're kind of like interrogating them sternly. Let's just, in a discussional, relaxed way, let's get into those conversations so we know what, so that you know what what values your friends have got or your relatives have got. So that's number 4. Number 5 now, help raise awareness amongst your network. So the people, because obviously in this life, we can't do it all on our own. We need that network sometimes to support us when we are really pressed or when we need that support. So when you have that network, it's important for us to talk about these things. I don't know why within a community we don't talk about them. If I'm sending my kid to spend a week or 2 in someone's house, we need to be discussing these things so that they are vigilant. So children are not playing in the bedroom, and then nobody just passes there to even check out what is happening there. Vera says there's also a toolkit on Barnabas. I think I've read that already. Awesome. Then for us as a community, simple practices that we need to change: hugging kids, or maybe touching kids, slapping a kid's teenage girl's bottom, or even if it's a child, slapping a child's bottom because they have a lovely, beautiful African bottom. I don't think it's acceptable. It is considered as child abuse. Yes, so Joyce says, good point. Someone I played a game he called Pretty Woman with a friend's daughter. The day she asked her daughter to tell her what it's about, she realized it was all sex. My God, that is scary. You see that? So these are all things happening very subtly, and children don't always talk about it. Children, several reasons they might have for not coming to tell you. They might be afraid. They may have been threatened not to say anything. They may feel worthless, but please let's remind them that if they get abused, it's not their fault. It's not their fault. And let's, pray with them and just let them know that, they're turning a new leaf. Don't do it again. So finally, let us pray for our children. In as much as we want to do as much as we can to protect our kids, let's really pray that our children will not fall in the hands of evil people or perpetrators of sex abuse. So, thank you very much. We've had a really, really lovely conversation here today. Please keep writing comments. We are all learning from each other. Laya says that's why we must speak to them constantly, absolutely, so they feel free to speak regardless, absolutely. So it's not when you're holding a family meeting to say, okay, let's talk about, let's read through the PANS manual. Let's just talk about it, as often as we can so that they are actually familiar with these things. And once it happens, they will be hopefully open to come and talk about it with us. So please, let's get these comments coming. We will have to end here today. It's been a really, really lovely time talking about this issue that we don't always feel free to talk about. But obviously, we are raising up leaders. We're raising up confident children. We can't allow them to be exposed to abuse. So I pray that your child, my child, will never have to go through this. We cover them with the precious blood of Jesus. Thank you very much for joining and have a really lovely week. Thank you. Masuma says, thanks for this, as we need to make this issue more aware amongst our community. You are very right, Masuma. It's something that, in all communities, in the Black community, I believe in the Asian community, we kind of shy away from it. But there we go. We need to talk about it and protect our children. Thank you very much. And have a lovely night. You've been up for 30, 40 minutes. Thank you for joining me. It was a real pleasure. And have a lovely weekend. God bless you. Goodbye.